We would like you to join us as we recap our road trip for 2018. This was our longest road trip to date. We spent a total of 11 days on the road, going where we wanted to go, doing what we wanted to do for as long as we wanted to do it. We saw some amazing country as we traveled a total of 3,219 miles. Yes, this is an amazing and beautiful land, from those unique little mountain towns buried in the Rockies, to the canyons of Arizona and Utah, to the sands of a different color, and the miles and miles of the heartland. The tourist traps and nature's masterpieces, the waterfalls throughout, scenic train trips through southern Colorado, and a few places that were, well, just darn cool. And all this while nature's little guys looked on. So please join us as we share some of these experiences. Rio Grande Scenic Railroad was one of our stops. This passenger train travels from Alamosa, Colorado to La Venta, Colorado through some really pretty areas. The day-long trip eventually returns to Alamosa. We grabbed 2 seats in the front of the dome car and we were off. The trip was exciting until we had to stop and drop the last car because one of the 2 1964 Amtrak engines broke down and couldn't pull the weight. A bit later, we stopped again as a sudden rainstorm had washed mud and rocks over the track, and the crew had to clear it by hand. By the time we got to La Venta, we were hours behind schedule. Underpowered school bus awaited us for the hour-and-a-half return trip to Alamosa because they decided it wasn't safe to return by rail. We picked up the $1 Million Highway out of Durango, Colorado, and headed north. This is one of America's prettiest drives. The road twists and turns up and down the Rocky Mountains, where a few small towns are located. We stopped in Silverton, a former mining town now supported by tourists that arrive in town daily thanks to the Durango-Silverton Railroad. Back on the $1 Million Highway, we come to Ouray, another small town in the Rockies. We checked it out, found a great little place to have an outside dinner nestled in the canyon in this quaint little town. And here we bunked down for the night. The next stop off the $1 Million Highway is Telluride, Colorado. This is the largest of the three towns and is a very popular ski town in the winter. We drove Main Street and decided it would be added to our come back and spend more time list. But for now, we moved on. As we dropped down out of the pine-covered Rockies, the land turned to barren desert. Although the view was quite different, it was pretty in its own way. The Colorado River created Marble Canyon. We crossed the river and stopped at the visitor center for a break. Our surroundings were unique. The river far below was muddy and looked like a slow-moving sludge. But there was the beauty of the bridge, known as the Navajo Bridge, as we are now deep in Navajo country.
Another Indian-owned attraction is the Four Corners, a place where the corners of 4 states come together. It is located in the middle of absolutely nowhere. There is nothing to see for as far as the eye can see, and even less to do except for the Four Corners. Yet people line up to take pictures of their families standing on the plaque where the Four Corners supposedly come together. The area is surrounded with little booths where the local Indians try to get you to buy their handmade Indian jewelry. Our recommendation? Save your $10 entry fee and avoid this tourist trap.
Some of you may remember those old Western movies and the countryside where they were shot. That brings us to Monument Valley. Owned by Native Americans, this place allows you to drive a 17-mile unpaved and darn right rough loop to get up close and have different views. After having breakfast in the visitor center, that's what we did. Here are some of the photos we took. This was another unique place, a special place, a place that makes you feel like you are in another world, and in fact, you are. Normally, I wouldn't talk about the places we stay, but this place is different. This is Jacob Lake Inn. It is the closest place to stay to the north rim of the Grand Canyon, which is still 45 miles away. The closest towns are over 20 miles away in the opposite direction. It is out here by itself in the tall pines of Arizona, and it is one neat and unique place. It has it all. Lodging choices from quaint cabins to motel rooms with some amenities to the hotel with all the features of a normal hotel. We chose the hotel. The lodge has everything: a small grocery store, large gift shop with mostly Indian-made items, a bakery where cookies and muffins are made fresh daily, a dining room with a full menu, and a lunch counter. Yes, a lunch counter, where you can get breakfast, lunch, and a simplified dinner. From Jacob Lake, we drive the 45 miles to the North Rim Visitor Center of the Grand Canyon. The North Rim is less crowded than the South Rim, but you couldn't prove it by us. The Grand Canyon is 227 miles in length and 18 miles across at its widest point, 4 at its closest. It's over a mile to the bottom and over 6,000 feet to the floor. There are numerous vantage points around the rim, and we take off to find them. Please spend a few minutes and enjoy the views of some of the areas we were able to capture.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying how do you do? They're really saying I love you. I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I never knew. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
If you like waterfalls, we found many. Back in Ouray was the Cascade Falls, a non-advertised place right on the edge of town. Box Canyon was another waterfall in Ouray. This is larger and has been commercialized, but is still worth the visit. The actual waterfall is buried deep in the canyon. Water has eroded the rock, leaving only the exit at the bottom exposed for viewing. But nonetheless, the deafening sound of water falling 285 feet in a box canyon, along with your surroundings, while standing on a see-through walkway and admiring the view out of the canyon, makes this stop well worth the time. Over by Wolf Creek Pass, there's another waterfall just off the roadway. Water drops 105 feet over Treasure Falls. A trail allows you to climb to the top, and Wendy took on that challenge. The best waterfall we stumbled upon was back in Telluride. As you drive through town, you can't help but notice a huge waterfall in the distance. We continued through town until we got this view. This is known as Bridal Veil Falls. Water cascades 365 feet, creating what some see as a bride's veil. The building at the top was once part of a power generating station, but today is privately owned. North of Jacob Lake is Coral Sand State Park in Utah. A couple thousand acres of wind-blown sand which has created a few rather large sand dunes. I didn't see the sand being of any significant color, coral or otherwise, so to help you see it, some of the photos have had a little help from Photoshop. If you have a chance to stop here, don't. It's not worth the $8 you had to pay to get in. Continuing north through Utah, we find Bryce Canyon. This place is spectacular. It's called a canyon, but it's really an amphitheater. A number of amphitheaters actually, stretching over 20 miles. It covers an area of 56 miles and reaches 9,105 feet at its highest point. These formations are hard to believe unless you can see them for yourself. Try to see the beauty of the amazing formations that no man could have ever made. As we travel back to Jacob Lake, we are reminded of the wildlife that we have seen. Birds, squirrels, chipmunks, and deer all have allowed us to visit their homes. And this has added to the wonders of this amazing land. As we leave the canyons in Jacob Lake, we head east and again across Wolf Creek Pass. Even though we are on top of the pass, we are not at the summit, so we take off for Lobo Overlook, which is the summit at 11,904 feet. Few other people have ventured up this very narrow single-lane dirt road. We were lucky no one was coming the other way because there was nowhere to get past each other. At the top, you know you are close to the top of the world. Amazing views for sure. A local photographer was taking some mountain wildflower pictures and, well, so did I. Soon it was time to drop out of the mountains and head for Dodge City, Kansas.
Trucking on down the other side. Wolf Creek Pass way up on the big divide. Trucking on down the other side.
The terrain turned from mountains to high desert, and we had time to remember a few of the other places we saw. Sometimes a quick stop along the road and a quick snap of the shutter. Other times setting up the tripod and trying for the shot. Either way, creating memories. desert turned into the plains. The heartland of this great country we live in. Mile after mile, the gently rolling hills exposed nothing but farmland as far as the eye could see, and grain elevators every 10 miles or so. Oh, yeah, cattle feedlots, where hundreds of head of cattle are being fattened up. Yes, this is where it starts. This is where the bread begins and the burger is raised. Yes, this is where America gets fed from. This is truly the heartland. For us, it is time to reflect on what the last 11 days brought us. The diversity of this country is simply amazing. Deserts of various types, grasslands and mountains, canyons and gorges. About the only thing we didn't see was an ocean, but we did see everything in between. We put a lot of miles on the car, but we did what we wanted to do. We stopped where we wanted to stop, and we spent the time we wanted to spend. We got to experience parts of this country most will never see. We saw the destruction of wildfires and the beauty of a simple mountain lake. We saw how people in the barren desert live, as well as those living in the mountains of the Rockies. We saw God-made monuments in the desert and God-made canyons in the high plains. But most of all, we saw it together, as one, as a team, partners and lovers who enjoyed this opportunity and time, which we will never forget. So this is it. This is our record of our road trip 2018.